Alrighty, here we go again. Time to get carried. And you get to listen to me eat. Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. That's a lot of AD. Okay. You'll go tank. Okay. We'll go Velcos. What's the time on first strike? It's 3 seconds. Honestly, I might go heal. Oh. We lost somebody. We can ban Kane. I don't like Kane. He's annoying. Um, we got CC. I really like low cooldowns on the ultimate. I don't know why. That's cool. Oakley dokley. I don't get why it doesn't center automatically. That's what I get. Jarvan is going to be a problem, probably. I don't know why people pick Van.
And so I thought when I was kind of grounded because of the pandemic, maybe I would take a writing course. And that's what I did. I worked with a writing teacher and just went back to school and started playing. And then I had this weird concept of using my own doppelganger to look at the doppelganger world that we're living in. And that felt really fun.
That shows too, and don't take this the wrong way, but I was reading it and thinking, I didn't know Naomi was so funny and such a good writer. I mean, the other books are well written, but they're not. That's not what you're there for. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. This book, it really sings, and you're laughing, halfway through it.
Crying.
Yes, and while
a laugh cry emoji,
and
frozen.
While in some ways it's like a departure from your earlier books, I think, and I'm curious for your take on this. I think it also fits in with them as well, in the sense that a lot of your previous books were at once kind of an intervention in a particular moment, but also building a new framework for how to then think about that moment going forward. And I think this is both of those. So what, if that's right, like what kind of intervention did you want this to be, and what are you hoping like comes out of it?
Yeah, thanks for that, Ryan. It's definitely a weirder book, but it's definitely a weirder time. I mean, this was a very different writing process in the sense that all my other books, I had a full outline of what I was going to write before I wrote it. I had a book publishing deal. It was like lay out the thesis, say what you're going to do it, say you did it. That's the structure of the books. With this book, I really found it through writing it. I knew that the device of the narrow aperture of the double of the doppelganger was going to help me get back into branding, was going to help me get into AI, was going to help me get into sort of data mining, but was also going to help me get into the way kind of the right and the sort of liberal center, and to a degree also the left, were kind of in this mirror war with each other, where like whatever they said we can't say. So if they're now talking about big pharma, we are cheering big pharma. Get your that's our whole thing. And so I was really interested in that reactivity, but also the final third of the book is about what are we not looking at when we're looking at ourselves as brands, as perfected beings, or when we're just reacting with one another. And the final third of the book is called the Shadowlands, and that's I think as James Baldwin said, it's like what are we not looking at? We're not willing to look at death. We're not willing to look at trouble. We're not willing to look at history. And I think this is such a moment of wild distraction, and it makes sense. Like, this is a hard moment to hold. The COVID was this reckoning, this unveiling of so many pre-existing injustices and inequalities that became unignorable because the people who were in the shadows holding the world up, highly racialized, were the COVID hotspots. I mean, it was the meat packing plants. It was, it was the Amazon warehouses. And here's an airborne virus that forces us to think about who else breathed this air. Could they call in sick? Did they have any rights? And it is a absolute frontal confrontation with the logic at the heart of capitalism that tells you you're on your own. You are an island. All of your successes are yours alone, and people who don't have them are, it's their fault. And suddenly, no, we are enmeshed. And that was a very hard reckoning to hold when you've been told your whole life that you make yourself, and your only duty is to yourself and your family. And if you are successful, then that's you've won the prize, right? And now suddenly you have to think about vulnerable people. You have to think about workers. You have to think about racialized workers. That was not the bargain that a lot of people signed up for. And I don't think it should be a surprise that a lot of people rebelled against that and said, no way, I'm going to shout freedom in the freezing cold. And that's what happened in my country. Honk your air horn. I think it's equally interesting that a lot of people who grew up in that same individualistic culture welcomed the emergence of a social state that, put an eviction moratorium, paid people to stay home, set up mutual aid networks, and said, we want to show up for each other. And then there's a racial justice reckoning in the middle of that, and it deepens, and there's a vision for another kind of society. With radically different spending priorities. So, I think we are in this moment where you've got a reckoning with our present incredibly unjust economic order, which you can no longer unsee on some level, especially if you're part of the lockdown class, because you know that you are being supported by all these other people who bore so much more risk unequally. You've got a reckoning with the very creation of settler colonial states. And then you've got a reckoning with the future, right? Which is the climate crisis is here, and we are all implicated in it. So I think there's all kinds of distractions being thrown up right now, and that's what this book is trying to do, is like map the weirdness of now. Arundhati Roy said to us early on in this pandemic that it was going to be a portal, that we were going to go somewhere new, and it could have been better, and it could be worse, but it was not going to be the same. This was too cataclysmic to not bring us somewhere. And I don't think we know where that somewhere is yet.
Yeah, we're still figuring that out. And I think you write that the mirror world has to be understood through the prism of the doppelganger and through the framework of the doppelganger, and therefore can't be understood without reference to ourselves as well. And you go into a number of different areas where you change your own mind and you're self-critical, for people who haven't read the book, there's there's a lot of self-criticism of things that you wish you had given more thought to early on in the pandemic. Some of them, COVID origin. Some you write about the vaccine and complications around pregnancy and some other warnings that could have been given. Let's go through some of those.
Yeah.
Like which ones you want to start with that were the ones that
well,
you.
okay, I just want to point
yeah.
out that I'm in a particularly awkward situation here because there is this thing where I did write a book called The Shock Doctrine. It is about how large-scale emergencies are exploited by elites to push through a pre-existing wish list. It's not a conspiracy. It's all proven. It's real. It's still happening in Hawaii right now. It's happening under cover of COVID. It's not a conspiracy, but it is true that, for instance, the UK government has used the fact that hospitals were over capacity to attack the NHS, to attack their much-loved National Health Service. The different right-wing run Canadian provinces have done the same thing. I think a lot of the attacks on schools around COVID policies were actually just attacks on public schools. And part of that the pre-existing pattern of whatever the disaster, let's use it to have vouchers and charters, and the same thing that happened after Katrina and Maria and again and again and again. But this was awkward for me, and I did write a lot about that in the early stage of the pandemic, but then all of a sudden there was this kind of doppelganger version of the shock doctrine, which was this great reset conspiracy theory that was coursing through the world, which was like the shock doctrine with all the facts and evidence removed in order to expose a conspiracy that was actually had a website and a marketing firm, which was that, the World Economic Forum said, yes, we want a great reset. It wasn't hidden, but somehow it got recast as if it was some great feat of investigative journalism to find this website and
watch a couple of YouTube videos that they made, right?
Right, yeah. Which included people like King Charles, right? So it's like if you were trying to hide something, you wouldn't get him involved, So that left me speace. Like I didn't know what to do.
You wrote one very helpful piece for us, I remember, about the conspiracy smoothie,
yeah.
which I could send the link to all my friends who would be asking about the Great Reset.
I want to tell you an interesting story related to that before we go down the list, because there are real things that were true things and things that were abandoned. But some of this is just about clout chasing. And the reason I know that is because, so Russell Brand read that article on his show. And he would often just read articles of mine if anyone who's listened to his podcast knows that a lot of what he does is just sort of read articles written by other people with feeling.
Yep. And an accent.
Yeah. And so he does this show where he says, Naomi Klein's written this really interesting article. I know a lot of people are talking about the Great Reset. It explains what it is. It's nothing to get excited about. And he reads the article and says, this is all true. And then he puts Great Reset, as one of the tags. You know about all this. And then all of a sudden, he gets a lot more views than he had been getting before, because, of course, all the people who believe in the Great Reset find it and they watch it. And then suddenly Russell Brand has a whole bunch of new followers. And then he goes back to the Great Reset about 20 times, except for now it's audience capture, and he's giving them what they want, which is a much more conspiratorial take on it. So I sort of watched that happening with great fascination. Just interesting.
Yes. Yeah, and yes,
it's a clout mine.
Yes, this is, but YouTube does that to a lot of its like content creators. It will pull them into conspiracy land further and further by funneling more and more traffic to them, and then they'll cross an arbitrary line and they'll nuke their channel. It's this bizarre.
Right.
It's a bizarre thing where they're feeding the very thing that they then nuke. Which actually, let me ask you about. You hinted at censorship a couple times, and the whole big tech. Used to be a thing of the left that you don't want big tech telling people what they can and can't say. That's become a right-wing thing.
Right. And
looking back, with Facebook, for instance, wouldn't let you post anything that speculated about the Wuhan lab being the origin of COVID. Like you would lose your account. I think Twitter had some penalties, but it wasn't like as draconian as Facebook. So that's terrifying. It's a real terrifying thing that actually happened.
Yeah.
And so,
It's also not the first time. I mean, I think that this idea that this is a right-wing concern is a very specifically American phenomenon. You know, if you ask folks in Turkey or India, you know, they will most certainly say that it is their extreme right-wing governments that are working with these same tech companies to deplatform dissidents and toe the government line.
right,
Yeah.
because the right is doing that here
Yeah.
as well, including buying the platform and directing it,
Right, that.
directing it their way. So the book also feels like it's trying to give people permission to kind of look back at where they were the last couple years and allow for more uncertainty while also not wallowing in complete nihilism or pretending that nothing is true. So
Yeah.
if you could go back and talk to yourself in like 2020, what would you say to help you think your way through the next couple years?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there are certain points where I think in the early stages of the pandemic, there was a lot of really great political organizing on the left that was not just, you know, supporting the kind, like, yes, supporting masks and eventually vaccination programs, but being much more ambitious than that. You know, for instance, we knew from the Scandinavian countries that you could keep schools open if you had small enough classrooms, right? And so that's a pretty good argument for something that we need anyway. We need smaller classrooms for our kids. More outdoor education is also a great way to, you know, keep your kids safe from an airborne virus. The right to good indoor air is another one. And I think what started to happen is, like, there was a lot of this more ambitious, I mean, you know this, Ryan, there were a lot of groups here that were collaborating across, you know, different kind of issue silos to envision what rebuilding from the pandemic could be, learning from the lessons of who had been most impacted, taking in the lessons of the racial justice uprisings of 2020. And, you know, there was the Black, Red, and Green New Deal. There was, you know, there were all these sort of platform experiments happening. And I think then, for a variety of reasons, a lot of them got derailed. And for me, that was what made me most sort of speechless, was sort of watching us go from like these really, really high highs. You know, I was part of the Bernie campaign. You know, I was still living in the States when the racial justice uprisings happened. I remember being in New Jersey and just that kind of amazing moment where you realize that, like, all of your neighbors are out, you know, and it was like the opposite of every zombie movie plot, right? Where, like, there's an apocalypse and people come out to eat each other's brains, except for there's an apocalypse and people come out and they just, like, are expressing solidarity, you know? I mean, it was just, that was an amazing turn of events. And then things, I think, you know, you wrote the piece, the elephant in the Zoom. Right. But I do think Zoom organizing around this was very hard. I think it was hard to sustain solidarity virtually. I think losing those sort of interstitial, it was one of the issues, you know, losing those sort of interstitial moments that I think nourish folks in movements. And just having the hard meetings is really, really difficult. A lot of things got confused when Democrats were in power as well, right? Where it was just like, okay, well, how against things can we be when we don't have Trump to, like, clearly all be against? Things got a little mixed up. But what would I say to my? Yeah. I would say we were on the right track. I think we were on the right track. You know, there was a good piece that David Wallace Wells did recently about COVID revisionism. And the COVID revisionism I'm most interested in is the revisionism that kind of erases all that early solidarity, is almost kind of embarrassed by it. And, you know, I think we need more stamina, frankly, you know, to see things through. And I think we need that horizon of where we're moving towards, precisely because these kinds of unveilings and reckonings are really difficult. And if there isn't a vision of a world where, you know, nobody is sacrificial, where everyone has a place, which is, you know, somewhere where we all might want to go, I think that the hard work of actually seeing where we are becomes almost impossible, right? Yeah, so I would say keep at it. You were on the right track. Don't get derailed.
Which
What would you say?
Oh God, I don't know.
With US Cellular, it's just $29.99 per line for 1, 2, or 3 lines. So you don't need that robot daughter you built to get a 4th line for family plan pricing.
Oh, Rope Elizabeth? She's not gonna like that.
The robots will prevail.
Oh boy.
Get the low rate of $29.99 per line. US Cellular, built for us. Terms apply. Visit uscellular.com for details.
We value human connection with fewer distractions. U.S. Cellular, built for us. Visit your U.S. Cellular authorized agent, Community Cellular, located at 627 Broadway in Bangor.
I can't believe BJ's Wholesale Club has all this great new stuff. Honey, this sofa is so stylish.
Yeah, stylish.
And this sweater is so on trend. Try it on.
That's me, Mr. Trendy.
And BJ's has the hottest brands at great prices, like Sur La Table and Nespresso.
And Hot Wheels.
Look, it's Barbie! Hi, Ken. Let's go to the beach in my Corvette.
Attention BJ's members, the club is now closed.
Just 5 more minutes?
Please?
Saving Club or on BJ's.com. Not a member? Join today. BJ's. Absurdly simple savings.
Which direction do you think things are going the last year or so? Do you feel like, as you write about the difficulty that in 2021, 2022, on the progressive left, people were having open debate, that everybody was nervous, everybody was, and you talk about the distrust that was producing just people who are out for themselves and collapsing organizations, which goes to the thing that you were mentioning that I wrote about later. Do you feel like it's still headed in that direction, or do you think it's swinging back a little bit and there's more trust and more willingness to
I've been struck
disagree?
with this book that I think there are peaks and valleys in social movements, and I think we're in a valley. And I think because of that, there's less defensiveness. I'm finding less defensiveness where, I think when things are going a little better, people are more inclined to be like, no, don't criticize us. We know what we're doing. But I don't know a single person who's happy with the trajectory of how social movements have gone. We've had these high highs, right? I mean, the climate strikes in that wasn't so long ago, that millions and millions of people around the world, or the energy around the Green New Deal in 2019. So given that in our recent memories, we've experienced these kind of effervescent political moments when a lot seemed possible. I was in Nevada when Bernie swept the strip. I've never seen so many happy leftists. It was just hugging total strangers, right? And so, I think that I'm noticing a non-defensiveness. I mean, it's never easy to do this work, but I think it's incredibly important for social movements to be able to do self-criticism. And most, frankly, non-North American countries are better at it than we are. They do the autocritica in Latin America. It's just like part of organizing. What did we do wrong? How do we learn from that? I quote in the book Ali Abd el-Fattah, who is one of the amazing, Egyptian revolutionaries who led the 2011 revolution, and has been in prison now for 12 years. And he's sitting there writing essays about what they did wrong. And he knows they did it wrong because he's in jail. And so are tens of thousands of other political prisoners in Egypt. And he's not saying it's all their fault. It's obviously a murderous military dictatorship's fault. But that doesn't mean that we don't still have a responsibility to try to metabolize, how do we do it better, right? Because everything's on the line here. So, I'm so far so good, Brian. I mean, everything could go south really quickly, but...
What do you think that we could acknowledge that we did wrong in the last couple of years in general, particularly when it comes to COVID?
Who's the we?
Who's the we? The we would be the kind of broad progressive left.
I mean, I think it was. I think we should have gone all in for lifting the patents on the vaccines. I think there should have been just really militant internationalism, like I won't get my third shot until everybody on this planet gets their first one. That was one of the moments where we had this big trucker convoy in Canada that shut down Ottawa for 3 weeks. And it was weird because I was like, well, what if we'd shut down Ottawa for 3 weeks? Actually with some real demands for justice. So, I think that's one. I think that it has to be if you're going to ask individuals to do hard things, it has to be fair. This is the lesson of the mobilizations during the Second World War, where people did a lot of hard things for the war effort. But it was incredibly important that it be perceived by the public to apply to everyone. So I think that we should have gone after profiteering, like COVID profiteering, hammer and tongs. Like nobody should have been allowed to get rich, let alone have these billionaires double their already obscene wealth. It's so demoralizing. And when you have systems that are allowing that to happen and then are saying, close down your small business, close down your small job, come on. That is not going to work, right? And then turning around and saying, oh, those people are jerks. It's not, it doesn't hold. It really, really doesn't hold. So I think that that's where the energy should have gone, and it still can. It still can. We can take these issues back.
Yeah, so we've got some audience questions we're going to get to here. So here's one. In a world and a future where human history is being collected as data by wealthy companies and then repurposed by AI, what do you see as the role of a writer? How do you compete and ensure your words are portrayed as they should be? That's from Natasha.
Oh, hi, Natasha. Where are you? Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I quoted Arundhati Roy, who I'm lucky to call a friend, and she said to me, 20 years ago, you can't control what happens to your ideas once you release them. And that was before AI and social media. It was just, and the thing she was saying is, for better and for worse. People do awful things with one's ideas, and they also do wonderful things, and you actually can't take credit for either of them. So I think, to write is to be misunderstood, but it's also to have this amazing experience of having your words meet other brains and have them add all kinds of things that never occurred to you. And, that's, I've talked about this project as being a kind of a first attempt at a weird little map of what I see through the portal, but I'm just one set of eyes seeing it, And the fun part is the part I'm in right now, where people are going like, you missed a whole mountain range over there, and what about this path? And so, writing is such collective work. Even when you're all by yourself, you're hearing this cacophony of voices that are influencing you, that are your sources, that are your references, that are the other writers that made you, and then the work goes into the world, and then you do it all over again. And that's actually been the funnest part about this particular book, is that because it doesn't make any pretext of being definitive about anything, it's very personal, it's very quirky, it's very particular. It has inspired already some incredibly wonderful writing in other writers. So we can't control it, but I think there's a lot of beauty in it.
Would you clone yourself if you could? No name on this one.
I would absolutely not. No.
It doesn't work out in any of the stories that you write about in your book.
No.
Never a good ending.
There's a funny, there's an underappreciated doppelganger film called Duel. I think it's a made-for-Netflix film where the main character, Carol Gilliam, played by Carol Gilliam, gets a terminal diagnosis, and she lives in a world where you can create a clone so that your friends and family don't have to feel grief. It's more a metaphor for how bad we are at grief, right? And how much the culture we're in tends to not feel and numb, and so how about having a technology where nobody has to feel sad things? There's a line in it where it turns out she was misdiagnosed and she's going to live, and that means she has to fight her clone to the death. And they say, we can't have two of you walking around. That would be ridiculous. Tell me about it.
As a college student and climate activist, I'm inspired constantly by your work. What advice do you have for people like me who want to do the kind of writing and research you do?
Well, I think one of the things we really need now are some success story writings. We got plenty of reason to feel down. There was just a great piece that came out. I just tweeted it. Hi, Raj. By Liza Featherstone in These Times, about the story of how New York State won a really fantastic energy democracy piece of legislation, and it's a great pincer of climate justice organizing and DSA folks in office who are able to receive that pressure. And it's a wonderful kind of success story that I think we need to spread. Right now in Brazil, there's a celebration going on because they beat back Bolsonaro, and there's starting to be some really progressive policies about the Amazon enacted. And some indigenous ecofeminists have been elected into the Brazilian cabinet. It's exciting, and we don't think about that enough. And there's so yeah. I would say tell those stories, and as a writer and as a researcher, figure out how we can crack this and spread the good news if you can.
Last question for me, and then if you want to read a little bit more.
Yeah.
So one of the main things I took away from your book is how much fear of the mirror world shapes our own approach to truth and to our own politics. Mm-hmm. Justified, I think, fear, which then ends up linking the things that we believe with our tribe, with our partisan politics. And you become unable then, you end up with a situation where things that don't have any obvious partisan valence take one on. I understand why most progressives say the minimum wage should be higher and conservatives say there should be no minimum wage. That makes ideological sense. Doesn't make ideological sense to talk about COVID origins. That doesn't fit into a partisan lens.
Right.
Or what you wrote about with potential complications that the virus produces during pregnancy or during a menstrual cycle. That shouldn't have anything to do with partisan politics, yet it did. And so on the vaccine, for instance, as it became increasingly clear that it wasn't stopping the spread, it was impossible for Democrats to talk about that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the fear that you write about in your book, it helps to explain that. Mm-hmm. So how can people break out of that so that they don't continue to produce the monsters in the mirror world?
Yeah. Well, I think that what's really dangerous about these figures, to me, for Bannon and Maloney, is the way they're kind of mixing and matching these very, very dangerous scapegoat policies of various kinds with these issues that are not traditionally issues for the right, and that have a lot of potency. And so I think the most important thing we can do is reclaim those issues, because they're only available to be picked up if they're not, if we're not using them to full effect, right? They can use them, but it won't have the same kind of power of truth-telling that it's having at the moment. So I think that is incredibly important work. I think as journalists, there just needs to be a little bit of just doing our jobs, right? I think people can handle more complexity than we sometimes give them credit for. So you can say that there are some adverse reactions to vaccines, and people can still make an educated decision about it. And if you don't, then they're going to go do their own research, and they're going to end up in the arms of some people who are really, really untrustworthy. What you were referencing around vaccines and pregnancy, it's incredibly important for pregnant women to be vaccinated, because your immune system is suppressed when you are pregnant, because your body needs not to reject the fetus. And so if you get COVID when you're pregnant, there's a really good chance you'll get quite sick. This was not really explained. It was just sort of treated like, oh, what a ridiculous idea, people, and so I just think, just doing some basic education, and also explaining, and also just treating people a little more kindly, that's a really legitimate question. Mm-hmm. I was afraid of everything when I was pregnant. I was afraid of eating soft cheese when I was pregnant. So I can understand why people were afraid of these vaccines. And I think it was honestly a failure of scientific communication that sort of simple fact was not explained properly. But I just saw a lot of mocking of people who had those concerns, and I think a lot of people were pushed into, they were suddenly getting their advice from Instagram, momfluencers, and that was super bad,
Do you want to finish with a?
Yeah, I'll do one last reading. Maybe I'll just stay here if that's okay. Story time. Doppelganger story time. So a lot of the book is about the way we avoid looking at the Shadowlands because we're implicated in them. And I quote this wonderful British writer named Daisy Hildyard, who has a different kind of take on doppelgangers. And she talks about something called the second body. And what she says is that we all have two bodies. We have the body that we're in right now, which we're aware of, right? But there is also another body that is out there in the world doing our bidding. And that body is implicated in oil wars and drone warfare and extinctions, just because we are all in this system. Not because we like it, but because we are just all in it. And that second body, that reality, that is us too. Like, that is our tax dollars, that is our purchasing decisions, that's us, is so, so hard to hold, that we throw up all of these projections and distractions, including putting so much work into perfecting ourselves, our brands, our bodies, our families, that we don't really have much time left for the collective work that really is our only hope. So the last chapter is called Unselfing. James Baldwin, speaking about the double projected onto him as a black man in the United States, observed that it had everything to do with the person doing the projecting. What was a white man seeing when he saw Baldwin? It wasn't me, he said. It was something he didn't want to see. And do you know what that was? It was, ultimately, yes, his own death. Or call it trouble. Trouble is an excellent metaphor for death. So many forms of doubling are ways of not looking at death or trouble. And death feels awfully close these days. As close as a fentanyl-laced pill, a heat dome, a hate crime, an intake of virally loaded breath. Much closer for some than for others, as usual, but not far enough, I suspect, for anyone's comfort. So how do we stop averting our gaze? How do we face our second bodies and our mortal bodies in a sustained way, rather than throwing up partitions, performances, and projections to hide from them? What would it take to stop running, to know, really know, what we already know? Some of the climate scientists whose work I most respect have come around to an understanding that there is an intimate relationship between our overinflated selves and our under-cared-for planet. Charlie Varon, a legendary coral scientist who has spent a lifetime studying the Great Barrier Reef, now in its death throes, describes the journey of his life as one of decentering himself so that he has the headspace to truly see other life forms, human and non-human alike. It was a hard-won lesson, which began with losing his young daughter, Fiona, or Noni, to drowning. Leveled by personal and ecological grief, he aspires now to dissolve into the reef he studies, to, quote, feel like coral or a fish. This recalls the novelist and philosopher Iris Murdoch's description of observing something beautiful, whether a bird or a painting, as an occasion for unselfing. Varon's humbling journey to unselfing may well hold a key to our collective survival, because it means that our role here on Earth is not simply to maximize the advantage of our lives. It's to maximize, protect, regenerate all of life. We are here not just to make sure we as individuals survive, but to make sure that life survives, not to chase clout, but to chase life. This is something else we might choose to learn from our double walkers. The idea that each one of us has a look-alike walking around somewhere means that no one is quite as special or unique as we might have imagined ourselves to be. Within capitalism's hall of mirrors, this revelation tends to be told as a horror story, as embodied by Jesse Eisenberg's character in The Double, the one who whimpers, "I'd like to think I'm pretty unique." This is the must kill, must stab, must be the last me standing response to doppelgangers that threads its way through Western literature, film, and monotheistic religion. But there is also the option of viewing our doubles the way fake Philip Roth does in Operation Shylock. Hooray, I'm not alone in this cruel world. Because we are not alone, at least not as alone as it can feel. Connections and solidarities and kinships are available to all of us should we choose to guard the boundaries of ourselves less jealously. We have kin everywhere. Some of them look like us, lots of them look nothing like us, and we are still connected to them. Some aren't even human, some are coral, some are whales, and they are there to connect with if we can get out of our own way for long enough. To be clear, I'm not planning to embrace my doppelganger as a long-lost relative, but doppelgangers, by messing with our heads and our illusions of sovereignty, can help teach us this lesson, that we are not as separate from one another as we might think, not as individuals, and perhaps not even as groups of individuals who have been born into various kinds of seemingly eternal fratricidal duels. It's the same lesson the pandemic tried to teach us in those early days. No one makes themselves. We all make and unmake one another. Self-involvement, however it manifests, my doppelganger's megalomania, my various neuroses, your fill in the blanks, is a story in which the self takes up too much space, just as the story of Judeo-Christian Western civilization puts the human, read white, male, powerful human, at the center of the story of life on this planet, with all of it created for our species. None of it is true, whether we are loving ourselves too much or loathing ourselves too much, or, more likely, doing both. We're still at the center of every story. We're still blotting out the sun. All of which is why, over the course of this now concluding journey, I have come to embrace Naomi confusion as an unconventional Buddhist exercise. I could never quite get the hang of non-attachment before this, but I think, thanks to her, I have. Thank you, Ryan.
Well, thank you, Naomi.
That was fun. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for doing this, and congratulations.
Okay, done with that. Oh, what? Olaf didn't even hit her. I'm sorry. That's too bad. He probably needed that. Oh, I'm on the way. I can't get that far. That's how you know we're playing a good game. When the jungler says FF, he's 0-2.
Felt it in my heart, sighed in the breeze. They wish me suicide.
CVS, couldn't choose between two items to get. They were basically the same, but I was hesitant. So you picked one for me and you shook your head. I overthink everything, I think too much, so I rely on you, cause you think just enough. Called you on the phone to use you as a crutch, to convince me the path I'm on is the right one. For a minute making music was little fun, but you said that was just cause I was in a rut. At my parents' house for what was to be a month, was nearly a year not talking to anyone. Told me that's why moving to LA would be fun, and I could always get a job if I needed funds. Knew you were right but I just wasn't sure enough.
Always drive my own life from the backseat, driving too slow in the fast lane till you pass me. Always trip over decisions, let things happen. Always controlled by the bad thoughts I was having. Oh, I always drive my own life from the backseat, driving too slow in the fast lane till you pass me. I can never make decisions, let them happen. Always controlled by the bad thoughts I was having.
I know that it's me, I doubt myself too much. So when you give me reasons, I take them in like a sponge. You always make up your mind, I follow you like a dog. If you hadn't got the blanket, we would never have touched. If you hadn't have kissed me, we would never have fucked.
Life from the backseat, driving too slow in the fast lane till you pass me. Always trip over decisions, let things happen. Always controlled by the bad thoughts I was having. Oh, I always drive my own life from the backseat, driving too slow in the fast lane till you pass me. I can never make decisions, let them happen. Always controlled by the bad thoughts I was having.
Always drive my own life from the backseat, driving too slow in the fast lane till you pass me. Always trip over decisions, let things happen. Always controlled by the bad thoughts I was having. Oh, I always drive my own life from the backseat, driving too slow in the fast lane till you pass me. I can never make decisions, let them happen. Always controlled by the bad thoughts I was having.
Okay, we'll back off. Is this coming? Nope, he stops. I should just do this.
I'm teary-eyed, looking back, I wouldn't change anything if I could, because I learned from love and learned from pain and let it change me. I'm teary-eyed, teary-eyed, teary-eyed. And I was at a trailer park, double wide. I was 10, I was out there smoking red with a pacemaker, and I think I see myself now. And I've been thinking about aliens and all the lives I probably lived, and all of my friends who died, and wonder where they went and where I'll go when I die. wasted, are just wasting all my best years. And one too many times when you're always leaving, nobody cares if you stay. And some nights when I drive, I'm not sure who's Steve. I can't tell if I'm wasted, I'm just wasting all my best years. I'm always tired, but I am never sleeping. I'm always tired, but I am never sleeping.
Is she rushing? I guess. Actually, that could work now. I think.
Maybe you should talk to somebody. I said, what am I doing right now? You said you know what I mean, you're not stupid. But I can see that's what you're trying to be again tonight. I know all of your stories, 'cause I'm in every single one. Like when we were driving home, sipping vodka from a water bottle, one foot in the grave and the other on the throttle. We were barely 17, they could have tried us as adults. So could we try to be adults right now? Maybe you should talk to somebody. Somebody begging you not to die isn't the same as telling you how to live. But I can see you're not gonna listen to me, even if I'm loud. I know all of your nuance. I see you every single day. I wanna keep it that way. Like when we were driving home, sipping vodka from a water bottle, one foot in the grave and the other on the throttle. We were barely 17, they could have tried us as adults. So could we try to be adults right now? Like when we were driving home, sipping vodka from a water bottle, one foot in the grave and the other on the throttle. We were barely 17, they could have tried us as adults. So could we try to be adults right now? Could we try to be adults right now?
Uh-oh. That's enough. I should have just gone bot.
Take my hand, come to grips, speaking tongues and reading lips, talking to me with your eyes,
Can I go through?
body language and battle cries. Remember when you told me it isn't what I say, it's what they heard. Remember when you told me that you and I won't ever need to say a word, 'cause we're speaking in love language. Like I even have the choice, 'cause when I'm with you I lose my voice. Speaking in a love language.
voice. 'Cause when I'm with you, I lose my voice. Speaking in a love language.
I drove your Cavalier, singing harmony to wish you were here. But I was all over the center line, so you said you would take the tenor line. Then something took over you. You took over my field of view, 'cause you were all wrapped up in me, like a Corvette wrapped around a sycamore tree. And you said, don't worry about the road, 'cause all of the cops here know me. They know the make of my car. They never pulled me over, not only very far. So let's get away with something. You've got away with me, and I wanna find out how you get away with everything. But don't tell me, I don't wanna hear a word. Just take your hands off the wheel, show me how you really feel. Show me how, show me how, show me how, show me how. Take your hands off the wheel, I need you to make it real. Show me how, show me how, show me how, show me how. Just your necklace and your shoulder blades, over the shoulder and the barricades. Your heart was pounding off my bones, like a lifeboat pounding off the shoreline stones. Your necklace and your shoulder blades, over the shoulder and the barricades. Your heart was pounding off my bones, like a lifeboat pounding off the shoreline stones. And you said, don't worry about the road, 'cause all of the cops here know me. They know the make of my car. They never pull me
drug, 'cause you only tried the hard stuff when you were hanging out with me. And I ended up shaking on the entryway rug. I guess sometimes I want someone to walk all over me. And I said, oh my God, I'm never coming down, baby. I took too much and I'm spinning around. My heart is racing and it's never gonna win. It's like I'm splashing in the water, getting circled by a pin. You said, baby, calm down, it's gonna be fine. You do this shit like all of the time. You faded right now, but let me be clear. You will never have to worry when I'm right here. And I'll always be, I will always be, I will. I will always be, I will always be, I will. Then we were taking some kind of road trip vacation. We called it moving, but we were just running anyway. After a month or two, I felt a hesitation when I touched your shoulder. And you said you had to go home. And I said, oh my God, I'm never going back. I can't jump off the train, well, it's still on the track. My heart is racing and it's never gonna win. It's like I'm splashing in the water, getting circled by a fin. You said, baby, calm down, it's gonna be fine. You do this shit like all of the time. You faded right now, but let me be clear. You will never have to worry when I'm right here. And I'll always be, I will always be, I will. I will always be, I will always be, I will. And I said, oh my God, I'm never coming down, baby. I took too much and I'm spinning around. My heart is racing and it's never gonna win. It's like I'm splashing in the water, getting circled by a pin. You said, baby, calm down, it's gonna be fine. You do this shit like all of the time. You faded right now, but let me be clear. You will never have to worry when I'm right here. And I'll always be, I will always be, I will. I will always be, I will always be, I will.
I'm just staying mid and farming.
It's hard to watch the news today without a Xanax bar. I just drove 1,000 miles in my mother's beat-up car. It's hard to believe all that metal even made it this far. Well, I could say the same for us. but here we are, and here we go again. I just need something to keep me awake today. I don't care what it is. I just need something to keep me awake today. She says I gotta slow down every now and then. She says it's not how hard you go, it's where and when. But I can't stop myself, that's how I've always been. I can't do it once or twice, I do it over and over again and again and again. I just need something to keep me awake today. I don't care what it is. I just need something to keep me awake today. Can you help me out? I just need something to keep me awake today. I don't care what it is. I just need something to keep me awake today. This stuff isn't strong enough to make this cold heart race. And it won't last long enough, and I can tell it by the taste. Well, you can learn a lot about someone from the things they chase, but even more about what they run from and the things they keep around. Just in case, I just need something to keep me awake today. I don't care what it is. I just need something to keep me awake today. Can you help me out? I just need something to keep me awake today. I don't care what it is. I just need something to keep me awake today. Most things get boring enough by the final verse, but write it down anyway, for better or for worse. 'Cause running out of things to say isn't always a curse. No, sometimes the walk is better if you run out of gas on the side of the freeway first. I just need something to keep me awake today. I don't care what it is. I just need something to keep me awake today. Can you help me out? I just need something to keep me awake today. I don't care what it costs. I just need something to keep me awake today.
It didn't start. Let's pick another song.
I've been feeling blue. I've been feeling blue.
Best games don't start.
I've been feeling
Blue days hit me two ways. First in my stomach, then they're shooting through my blue veins. I'm having mood swings, I feel so rearranged. It's like they chop me up and put me in a suitcase. I could use a new brain, 'cause this one is broke. I said I'm okay, I suppose I misspoke. Yeah, I've been acting like I get it, but I'm missing the joke. I woke up deep inside December, but I'm missing my cold.
You don't know a thing about me. Washed ashore in a stormy sea. Yeah. You don't know a thing about me. You don't know a thing.
I'm thirsty, I'm dying upon my desert island. one is guilty.
You don't know a thing about me. Wash the shore and saw me see it. You don't know a thing about me. You don't know a thing.
I'm thirsty, I'm dying upon my desert island. Why won't you come save me? I'm drowning in your silence. Is anybody listening? I've been calling out for help. I need to know why it feels impossible to live inside myself. I wanna shake these fucking blues like tiny raindrops from my boots. I wanna run wild. I wanna break through.
I've been feeling
I'm thirsty, I'm dying upon my desert island. Why won't you come save me? I'm drowning in your silence.
Really a swing bot, maybe. There's
I got my head shaved yesterday so I could feel something new. When the world burns, I'll be hanging out in my room.
If I told you I was the devil's daughter, would you break the rules and still come over? I would give you everything I've known for a life with you. I would hand mine over. Feels like I'm floating with life of the dead to be closer to you. Feels like I'm floating with life of the dead to be closer to you.
that's gonna work.
I stand back and I watch you explore in perfect vision like I've been here before. Falling faster, I try to ignore. I see you, I see you. I'll let you drag me to hell if you hold my hand. Memories show that I'm out of time. See a shadow, don't know if it's mine, but I see you, I see you, I see you. Through all of this, you told me that you loved me so much. But now we're here, and I can barely breathe. Inside my head, I pulled apart all the pieces to only see I've always wanted you. So let's take this time to feel it all, no lies. 'Cause if we don't, the fight will eat the love alive. Stuck in self-destruct, and we can't wake up. Don't wanna give it away. Can't make me give it away. Don't eat the love alive. Don't eat the love alive. Don't eat the love alive. I know we're scared, and every day feels like a bad day. My biggest fear is you will walk away. The battle's here, and I'm standing in the fire. So take my hand, and we will stay alive. So let's take this time to feel it all, no lies. 'Cause if we don't, the fight will eat the love alive. Stuck in self-destruct, and we can't wake up. Don't wanna give it away. Can't make me give it away. Don't eat the love alive. 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 I died a little on the inside. Every day since you fucked up my life. Bought a ticket for a death ride. Even though I knew I'd pay the price. I've been numbing the pain smoking feelings away like Novocaine in my mind. All the blood in my veins is draining away. I don't care if I'm barely alive. Host is gone, emotionless. My heart already stopped beating. Buried deep, motionless. You caught me, but I'm not bleeding. You could tie me up like a match. Watch the flames wash over my head. I'm seeing red, my heart is black. 'Cause you can't kill what's already dead. Oh, wasn't it romantic? Every time you put your hands around my neck, by mugs making love notes. Every night you made a coffin out of my bed. I've been numbing the pain, smoking feelings away like Novocaine in my mind. All the blood in my veins is draining away. I don't care if I'm barely alive. Host is gone, emotionless. My heart already stopped beating. Buried deep, motionless. You caught hypnotized, I close my eyes, screaming like this is fucking suicide. And I feel like I'm in the afterlife, and all of my ghosts have arrived. I finally realize I need to hold me tight and kill all my demons tonight. Protect me, my wicked. Your evil is safe here tonight. Protect me, my wicked. Your evil is safe here tonight. My Your evil is safe here tonight. Tell me why angels hear me when I cry. Kinda like they pull out the light inside, and I feel like I'm in the afterlife, and all of my ghosts have arrived. Protect me, my wicked. Your evil is safe here tonight. Protect me, my wicked. Your evil is safe here tonight. My wicked, your evil is safe here tonight. My wicked, your evil is safe here tonight. My wicked. Your evil is safe here tonight. My wicked. It's less dangerous with the lights out. The high is almost over. You can see me waiting. I'm twisted into. Tell me that you love me, but I don't even love me. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm twisted into. Everything's rushing all of the time. I guess that's why it's hard to see. If only I let go, the sooner I'll find something inside. I'm looking for a blood rush, something lovely, a little sugar, just enough me.
Candles burn the house down. Ashes taste like memories. I can feel you fading. I'm twisted in two. I wish you didn't know me, 'cause maybe you'd be happier. 'Cause I like being lonely, twisted in two. Everything's rushing all of the time. I guess that's why it's hard to see. If only I let go, the sooner I'll find something inside. I'm looking for a blood rush, something lovely, a little sugar, just to know me, be an angel, and I'll be one too. I'm looking for a blood rush, something lovely, a little sugar, just to know me, be an angel, and I'll be one too.
The Maiden is too strong. Let's pick a
My head.
album. Well, I think we lost this one too.
Where to start? Need to feel
I got there.
like I'm a part of something else. And it will feel like forever until it doesn't. I heard you say. And it will feel like forever until it doesn't. I heard you say. And it will feel like forever. And it will feel like forever. And it will feel like forever until it doesn't. I heard you say. I heard you say. And it will feel like forever until it doesn't. I heard you say. And it will feel like forever until it doesn't. I heard you say. And it will feel. And it will feel. And it will feel like forever until it doesn't. I heard you say. And it will feel like, and it will feel like, and it will feel like forever. And it will feel like forever until it doesn't. I heard you say.
I pass out, 'cause I'm so sick of the self-doubt. It's not